If Iran had nuclear weapons, the Middle East would probably be a much safer place, and that's not a controversial opinion, that's just political science.
Sorry, that actually is a very controversial opinion, but let's hear her argument.
There is a reason why a bunch of countries have nuclear weapons, countries that hate each other, yet we have not had nuclear.
Okay, this might feel pedantic, but I promise it's not. A bunch of countries do not have nuclear weapons. At most, it is 9. There are 193 countries recognized by the United Nations. The vast majority do not have nuclear weapons. On the other hand, the vast majority of countries are signatories of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which is an agreement to not pursue nuclear weapons because, as I said originally, the idea that nukes make things safer is a very controversial one.
The reason that nuclear war hasn't happened and is very unlikely to ever happen is because of something called mutually assured destruction, or MAD, and it's exactly what it sounds like. The idea that nuclear war is ultimately suicidal.
So obviously I do think there is some truth to MAD, but let's take it to its logical conclusion. If every country had nuclear weapons, does that mean that there would be no wars? Of course not, there would have probably been many nuclear wars at this point. But I do agree that the current nuclear states likely view their stockpiles primarily as a deterrent. Believe it or not though, I actually think that is part of the problem, but for now, let's continue with her argument.
Great example is the USA and Russia, who hate each other, both have nuclear weapons, but won't actually go to war with each other. Or India and Pakistan, also both hate each other, also both have nuclear weapons, but won't ever go to a serious war with each other for that reason.
So I just flat out think India and Pakistan is a terrible example for this argument. It is technically true that they have not used nuclear weapons up to this point. They have come horrifyingly close since they have become nuclear weapon states. As for the US and Russia, we also had some terrifyingly close calls during the Cold War. Let's go back to the deterrent argument. One of the reasons Russia felt comfortable invading Ukraine, or why they felt comfortable invading Georgia, is because they don't think anyone is going to touch them. Nuclear weapons allow the nations that hold them to act with a certain amount of impunity. I would argue that this makes regions less safe, but there's one more example of hers that I really want to get to.
Because there are countries with nuclear weapons like North Korea with insane leaders like Kim Jong-un who are not going to drop nuclear weapons on South Korea, for example.
First of all, shout out to her for acknowledging Kim Jong-un. Not a good guy, and I mean that sincerely. Similar to what we said before, while Kim Jong-un hasn't used nuclear weapons, he has threatened to use them on South Korea many times in the past. Some will say only if he is provoked, so it's a deterrent. I don't want Kim Jong-un to have a deterrent. It means he isn't just holding his own population prisoner, which is bad enough already, but it means he is also holding the people of South Korea hostage by having nuclear weapons pointed at their cities. I don't want Kim Jong-un to have the ability to wipe out millions if he feels threatened. To get back to the original point, I don't want the Ayatollah to have the ability to wipe out millions if he feels threatened. And I think it is a horror that Israel has that ability currently. So to come full circle, the Middle East would not be safer if Iran had nuclear weapons, and it would definitely be safer if Israel didn't have them either.